But thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate being here. Supercomputing, I agree with Edison and everyone else, is #1 show. And congratulations again on the attendance and continuous growth on it. Just phenomenal. Yeah, let's see. So a little bit of, I think most of you know IDC, just I've got a couple of background charts. As a corporation, we're focused on everything related to IT, whether it's satellites, cell phones, game toys, anything electronic. Basically founded in 1964. We do over 425,000 surveys a year. You know, IDC is an international company, and we're very data-centric on that, and we're in 53 countries. As far as the organization that I'm in is the HPC Technical Computing Group, and again, if you have questions about the other areas, we have other analyst groups in each one of those areas. So as far as the numbers I walk through, and by the way, for any of you who want to join us Wednesday morning, we do have a breakfast briefing where we'll go into much more detail. But these are the attributes of all HPC systems worldwide that we try to track. We attempt to make an entire census of everything sold. We tend to send people out to the individual sites. You know, each one of the new top computers, we send a team out there as soon as they're announced. We were just in China, let's see, a week and a half ago. So quick overview of the market results. From the way we track the market right now, the first half of 2010 grew by 2%. That is an absolute home run for us, because what we've been looking for is, given the recession, when does the recession bottom out and then start growing again? Now, nobody can, or at least we can't forecast if it's going to be double dip. But right now, we're saying that we have come out of the recession right now based on the first half of 2010 results. And we're forecasting somewhere between 3% and 5%, hopefully a little bit more than that growth in 2010. But during this recession, there's been a massive change in the market, and that is the high end of the market has gone in hyper-turbocharged growth mode. In the heart of the recession, the high end of the market grew 65%. Now, we don't expect things can continue growing at 65% every year, but all indications we have is the high end of the market is going to continue to grow at a very high rate. The lower end of the market was more hit by budget pressures. You know, if you're spending $50,000 or $100,000, it's much easier to cap those budgets. We think the low end of the market will start growing again. But one thing we're watching very carefully is the low end of the market is most sensitive to clouds and the easiest fit to clouds. So we don't know how that cloud dynamic in the low end of the market is going to happen. And I think you're familiar with most of the other issues here. So since I only have 10 minutes, I'm going to really move through these. So for the first half of the year, we're seeing that the overall server market's around $4.1 billion. Edison showed an entire market view, which I'll show in later charts. This is only for the server itself. And when we say the server, it's the entire amount that somebody paid for the cluster. So it would include any inbuilt scratch disk space, the interconnects, any bundled software, no application software. But it's really the contract for the server itself. And if you noticed, a couple years ago, we were really nervous that this segment was shrinking away. It's now becoming almost the largest segment of the four. You know, so that's a home run for us. Here's how the vendors shook out for the whole market. HP and IBM for the last 6 years have been on a virtual tie. Last year, IBM pulled ahead for the first time during that. Now HP slightly ahead. The accuracy of market statistics here for the larger vendors is probably in the order of 1.5% to 2%. So anytime somebody gets within really 2%, we call that a tie. So then looking at just the top of the market, supercomputers, this is a case where you see IBM becoming much more dominant in the market itself and HP. The couple things I should mention is the Cray number here will bounce a lot. This is the first half of 2010. Cray gets the hockey stick in Q4 almost every year. So you'll see the Cray number, you know, literally double in size frequently. We also, as I mentioned earlier, we track the processor types, the x86. Anyone from Intel in the room? Intel's winning the processor war. I mean, just tremendously changed the landscape of the marketplace. Now then on to the forecast. Why are we projecting HPC to grow? Well, first of all, it's become a competitive weapon. And this is internationally, and it's within industries, and it's within universities and governments. And we think the global competitiveness is just going to continue driving HPC. The interesting thing to me, if any of you heard the Chinese workshop this morning, the Chinese are not doing the old traditional supercomputer war like with the US and Japan, where, you know, it's who's got the biggest machine. They're building out 14 different petascale centers around the country because they recognize the competitive value of that. The other part is the governments right now view HPC leadership as critical. And again, China everyone talks about, but you know, I'm sure everyone was watching the news about what Russia said in the last year. I mean, even Russia is stepping up saying, our products will not be competitive in the world unless we seriously embrace HPC. And then 3 and 4, the other two, you know, there's critical issues that need to be solved. The beauty of HPC compared to commercial processing, if you're doing payroll processing, once you've got a computer that can do the payroll check for everyone in your organization, you don't need another processor. you've got enough to do the job. Whereas in HPC, every center we interview always has this massive backlog of pent-up demand that they'd love to run if they could afford to run it. And so overall, here's our market forecast going out to 2014. We are in the process of updating this. Because of the economic change, we update our forecasts every quarter. But right now, we're projecting the overall market to grow around 6.3%. And if you look at the broader market view, the first line here is the compute servers, which I've been talking about completely so far. The storage part we expect to grow actually 3% faster than the compute part. The services also will be growing faster, the application software and middleware. And we're projecting that the overall ecosystem at HPC will be around $23 billion by 2013. And so a little bit, I'm switching gears now to the other side of our practice, which is the user forums. We've had 40 different meetings now around the world. We just had our first meeting in China on October 30th. Here's a typical agenda for our meetings. For those of you who've attended them, our intent is to turn on a fire hose at the start of the meeting and make sure everyone is absolutely exhausted by the end of them. And you can see we had just some tremendous presentations. Now, the goal of the user forum is a little different. And for a for-profit company, it's kind of an interesting goal we have. And that is to improve the health of the HPC industry. And that's through open discussions, through information sharing, and to get users in industry, government, and academia working together and also promoting the vendors and have the whole community more live and vibrant. And we feel that we've actually impacted a number of key decisions and things going on in the industry already. We've also expanded our steering committee. When we structured the user forum, we decided that the user community would drive the technical agenda, all the research and everything else, and this is the committee that makes all those decisions. Myself and Steve Conway are in this, but we don't even get a vote. It's purely driven by the user community. And so we welcome everyone to go to the website here. The key part here where it says download presentations, you can see the presentations for the last 4 years of meetings, including all the recent Chinese presentations just got loaded. What I'd like to do is walk through some interesting research that we've done. In particular, I think a number of you might have seen, we were hired by the EU to make a recommendation how Europe can become an HPC leader by 2020. The first thing we have to define is what is leadership in HPC. And well, this goes through the study. So it was started in January this year. We did the interim report. All these reports are available at the website down at the bottom. So hpcuserforum.com/EU, and that's the contract information. So part of it is, why is Europe concerned about HPC? I mentioned the competitive pressures. But Jack Dengara always helps us a lot. He was asked in an interview in June, how quickly will China become a major player in the HPC space? And his response was just perfect for us, and that was, I predict that within 1 year, they'll have more systems on the top 500 list than all 27 European countries. And we think that, he could be off by 6 months, but that is what's happening. And won't that change the nature of Europe versus China and Asia? So here, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. This is Nebula, which is now the world's 3rd largest machine. Keep in mind, that's a full-size giant dump truck sitting out there. So this is what they're doing. The interesting part is that's the whole for the data center and everything. They're going to be building an actual institute to go alongside of it. The Chinese are not just building data centers to plunk a big machine in. They're putting the whole infrastructure and creating an entire new environment for each one of these. So kind of as an overview of the interim report, what we found, as you'd expect, HPC has become indispensable for advancing both science and industrial competitiveness. Europe is underinvesting compared to the rest of the world. But the good news for Europe is the transition to petascale and exascale is creating a lot of opportunities, primarily on the software side right now for Europe. And you'll see that's the heart of our recommendation. Mike, I'm not sure if you're distributing the slides, but I'd be glad to send them to anyone who wants them. Here's one of the data tables from the interim report. Again, you can get the whole report online. But Europe basically lost 10 market share points over just a couple of years. So what our vision for Europe is that what Europe and the EU should focus on is providing world-class expertise and resources to make their scientists, engineers, and analysts the most productive in the world by applying HPC to their research. If you notice on this vision here, we're not saying build the largest machines. We are not saying build custom unique processors or new hardware. What we're saying is taking HPC as a tool and making your science and industry more competitive with that tool. And in a brief summary of the actions required, first of all, the price structure, which I think a lot of you are familiar with, we're saying needs to be expanded dramatically. In other words, Price has to buy a lot more machines, and they have to have a lot more control of what's going on. They also have to embrace industrial usage on those machines and not have them just for the scientific community. The third thing, which is really what I view as the innovative thing that we're recommending for Europe, and that is if Europe wants to develop leading edge software an exascale, petascale software, it needs to create a tool and an environment to do that. And we're recommending that Europe create 7 to 8 new HPC development test centers. And these centers would be a tool for anyone in Europe to develop software on and a platform for doing so. It would include teaching and training institutions also. The fourth item we found is we did a number of sub-surveys with this, and nobody's viewing Europe right now as the place to go for leading edge science as far as educationally. And so we're suggesting that Europe puts in place a magnet program to attract scientists and engineers into Europe and actually create a new degree program within Europe. And the fifth one, of course, is if you're going to focus on software, you have to put some serious money behind it. And we're suggesting here on the order of about $150 million a year just for the software development piece of it. And the sixth one is to focus that investment on just a handful of strategic application areas. So as I mentioned, the test beds, I just have a chart or two on that. These would be dedicated centers. They'd only be used in a test and development mode. By making the center a test development mode center, you can allow industry to have full access to it legally. The traditional problem has been if you have a government-sponsored HPC center, how do you let the industry use it without charging the industry for it? And if you don't do any production workload on it, it's only test and development that's broke that barrier. The other key part here is it's a major training and teaching institution. And when I say training, I'm referring to specifically for the person who brings in their code. So whatever level they're at with their code, if their code only scales to 1 core, 5 cores, you would have people there to train them how to get that code scaling. So it's very specific training, not just generic training. And the other issue that we suggested to Europe is where are you going to find the money to do this? And we're suggesting that Europe does not buy the number 1, 2, or 3 machine in the world. Because our analysis shows that that's going to cost $1 billion a system to play this game right now, and we actually think it's higher than that. The second thing, again, to free up money is when you're in the exascale world, do you really have to have an exascale system, or wouldn't a quarter exascale get you close enough? And what we're recommending to Europe is that they pick a cap, maybe 150 million to 200 million, and that's the largest size system that you actually acquire. So to do that, the net spend will be on the order of 600 million a year in additional spending. And as I said, on Wednesday, we'll be walking through the whole thing. Also, if you go to the website, you can download the entire recommendation report. The last thing I'd like to cover is a new HPC award recognition program. We've been members of a number of committees who are trying to address how do you grow the small, medium business and small, medium science part of the industry. In other words, how do you really make people more competitive, stronger in their sciences by touching a broader base? One of the missing pieces are people need examples. In other words, I agree with Addison, it's like an onion. There's a whole lot of barriers, but one of the large ones are organizations need to be able to make the business case. So what we want to do is collect a large number of success stories, promote them heavily, and have an award program to doing that. And that will help expand the, quote, missing middle. And so this is an award program. We'll be launching it Wednesday morning at our breakfast briefing. And we invite everyone to make submissions to it. Now, part of the submission has to have either the dollar value of the accomplishment, the scientific or engineering accomplishment, or the value to society. So you have to have a clear value statement, and then you have to have a clear what did you invest to do it. So you can actually create an ROI. So this is not like the top 500. This isn't comparing machines. It's comparing what you accomplished on machine. And with that, if you have any questions, and here are our various websites. And hopefully I didn't go over time too much. Excellent. 40 slides in 10 minutes is the challenge.
Thank you, Earl.
Great, thank you.